Austin, the Reds went 4-3 this week. They took 3 out of 4 from the Pirates. They haven't traded anybody. Are they running it back? What are we doing, Austin?
I don't know, man. It's good to be on one, but no, I think it's like a weird limbo, man, because I think it depends on kind of your outlook on the Reds. Like 5.5 games out of the wild card, it's like you could see them potentially making a run, but at the same time, it feels like they're like way out of it. So it's just a weird spot. But no, looking forward to chopping it up with you tonight.
Yeah, it's getting weird here in Cincinnati. We're either making the playoffs or we're selling everybody or we're doing nothing. Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to Red Hot Reds and Cincinnati Reds podcast. Ricky is out. His kid is not feeling too well. So we have our super sub, our super co-host here, Austin Layton, with us. As you heard from him in the intro, he's excited to talk about the Reds because they're winners. I mean, aside from losing 2 out of 3 of the Guardians for the week, today was the rubber match with Burns going on the mound, and they were 3-3 of the week, and they pulled it off. They not only won, but they won emphatically by more than one run. It's getting weird here in Cincinnati, like we said, Austin. What were your feelings on the week, just off the top?
Yeah, man, I'd say it's a slightly above average week. At least my feeling of it. I hate losing the Ohio Cup. Anytime the Guardians, those guys, it's an in-state rivalry, obviously. But I got a lot of friends that are Guardians fans and things like that. But if you could have told me that we'd end the week by winning a series against the Pirates, like I think you'd probably take that. I mean, everybody that's watching this and listening probably knows, the Reds struggles against the Central. So, yeah, good feeling that get a 3 out of 4, I guess, against the Pirates, and we'll see where things lay tomorrow at the trade deadline, or today, whenever you're listening to this, I guess. But should be interesting.
Yeah, we might even get breaking news mid-show. We'll see. I don't know. Crazy stuff happens. We will get into the Ty Steve post-game comments as well later in the show. Yeah, going into the Pirates, they were 8-23 against division opponents, if you can believe that. So they improved that to 11-24. Still a putrid NL Central record, but winning 3 out of 4 makes the week feel pretty good, despite losing to the Guardians and the Ohio Cup. But ultimately, the point is to try to get to the playoffs. It is kind of weird. I think I saw on August 1st of last year, the Reds were the opposite record of what they have now. They're 58-53, 5 games above 500. And this time we're entering August 3rd, the trade deadline, the opposite, 53-58, which is interesting to say the least, because they still have a chance. It's wild to say that. I guess the 3 wild card playoff format allows for this. It allows for teams that in years past the Reds would be complete sellers, right? If there's one wild card, maybe the Ty Stevenson would already be gone. Brady Singer they'd be already packing their bags to wherever the next destination is, because they're not coming back next year. I know we joked about before the show how it might be awkward that Ty Steve gets extended and then comes back to spring training 2027 whenever they have it, or whenever the lockout's over. But can they do it, Austin? Can they make the playoffs with this 53-58 team?
The weird thing is, I think they probably could. I'd be shocked if they did, but it's definitely within the realm of possibility. You touched on it with the expanded wild card. It keeps a lot of teams in it much longer than usual, and it puts the Reds in a really awkward position just for the trade deadline, because you could theoretically see them, selling, but at the same time, you can see them, if they made a couple of decent pieces trade wise coming in, but it could be, final interesting couple months for these guys. So it's a weird spot. I'm leaning towards they'll probably sell. We'll get into it, I'm sure, but I don't know. I think it's certainly possible. 5.5 games over basically 2 months, like it's doable. There's a lot of traffic in front of them, so that's going to complicate things. But as far as like teams and the standings, but I don't know, man. If you had asked me a week ago, I'm like, yeah, they're out of it. But like, I don't know if it's just me looking at the standings more. I'm like, there is a path that they could get in, which is weird to think because it doesn't feel like, especially if you look at like the NL Central standings, like we're way out of that. But like wild card, I mean, you could seriously, go on a couple week run here and find yourself in the thick of it. But we'll see.
Yeah, winning 4 out of 5 series out of the All-Star break certainly has you, at least, any team would have a little bit more hope than they had obviously going into the break, as they were not winning series at that rate. The other thing that you were talking about, NL Central standings, obviously the Brewers and the Cubs seem to be out of reach. But I've been saying this a lot. I've been texting this probably to Ricky probably more than I probably should. But the Pirates and the Cardinals are frauds, man. They are falling down to earth because they're not good baseball teams. We saw it this weekend with Pittsburgh. We saw it last weekend with St. Louis. Not good baseball teams. Sure, they're better than the Reds right now in the standings, and I'm not saying the Reds are miles apart, miles better than those teams. But the way that we're going up, they're coming down, and we're going to meet right there at the middle sooner or later. Maybe this week, maybe next week, they'll be possibly moving up in the standings. Third place in the division after the terrible months of May and June. Sounds like kind of like a moral victory, if you will, Austin. I don't know if we allow for moral victories. I know Sal Stewart would probably not be all about moral victories. He wants real victories for this ball club. But it would feel a little bit better. The last show, talking with Ricky, I was like, I just want to have like a good ending to the summer. You know what I mean? September's a gauntlet. August is not much better. But like, if we have a fun ending to the summer, we give the team a good run and maybe get close to a playoff spot, because I don't think this team has the talent or the depth to really go up against the Dodgers, a Brewers, a Braves. You know what I mean? It would be it would be backing into the playoffs more than they did last year. And we know the 2025 Reds were just, completely kicked out of the playoffs immediately in that wild card round and didn't really look like they had a fighting chance. So I don't know. You're like you said, it's weird times, and we're just trying to go day by day and figure out what this team's going to look like. Because I was talking to somebody. They got upcoming Athletics and Washington Nationals, and I don't know if you remember 2025 Austin. They had a chance to like really get back into the playoff race late September or maybe late August, and they got swept by the Athletics. And it feels like when they have a pivotal series against the Nationals, they lose that series as well. So this could be I don't know, they call it in the NFL a trap game, a couple of trap series against some underwhelming opponents that are not playoff teams as far as I can tell. I mean, the Nationals are 500, I think, so they're in the mix. I don't know much about the Athletics, but anyway, this could be a trap couple series where they play up to their, or play down to their opponent, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know what to make of this team either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point because September for the Reds schedule wise is like just ridiculous. They play Milwaukee, LA, and then I think Milwaukee and LA again. It's like, so you better make up some ground before you get to that. But yeah, to your point on 2025, I think we kind of thought we were out of it. And then it was late in the year. They swept the Cubs, right? And that's kind of what, I mean, we definitely got some help from the Mets, obviously, last year. But it seems weird to think that, they kind of is the reverse of what you would expect them to do with the Cubs last year too. So I don't know. I don't know how much that translates, obviously, this year to last year and everything. But I think you got to definitely have a good month of August because September is going to be just a lot of matchups against high playoff teams. And I mean, if the Reds can make it through that, they'll prove that they should be in it. But yeah, to your point, even if they make the playoffs, like how much firepower do we really have to compete with some of these guys? I don't know. Definitely not the Dodgers after what they just did with Scooble. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, the trade talks and rumors and whatnot, I guess, but let's get to the Cleveland Guardians Ohio Cup series. They go into it having to win the series to retain the cup because they had lost earlier in the year to the Guardians, 2-1, I believe, in their series in Cleveland. So they come here to Cincinnati. Unfortunately, don't get the wins that they need, but I don't know. The Guardians are kind of in a weird spot too because they're fighting for their playoff lives. So they're a good team. They're not as good as past Guardian teams, probably. But nevertheless, they lost a series to a team that gets the Ohio Cup back, gets to have the bragging rights of Ohio, what have you, which felt nice to have for one season. But
Seems like we never get it.
Yeah, we might not get it back for a while, especially if they have that tie rule. If we keep get it, and now it's now a 6-game series, or at least 6 games home and away going forward. So we'll see what ends up being. I mean, 2027 is a whole entire question. But like, what were your first takeaways from the Guardian series this past week?
Yeah, it was. So I went down Monday actually. So I was
Oh,
hoping to see a good game that night, and ended up getting obviously postponed until the next day. So that was kind of my initial thought of it. I'm like, well, shoot, man, this is kind of let down. But yeah, it was weird because when you make up 2 games or you make up one game the next day, play the doubleheader, splitting that, you're kind of feeling like, all right, it could be decent. And then, the last game of the series, Wednesday, when they lost, I think by like what, 5 runs, like 6-1, I believe.
yeah,
It was kind of deflating, and it seemed like more of the same from playing the Guardians in recent years. But I don't know. I think the fact that they didn't get swept was good, which you go back to moral victories on that. I know for a while we had that stat where we couldn't get swept, which is always great, but didn't hold out. But I don't know. I think at least for me, the Guardian series was kind of, it was a letdown, but it wasn't a complete deal breaker for me. I don't know your thoughts, but like it seemed like they at least played some competitive games. Obviously they won one, but even the first game that they lost, they only lost by one. And then that last game Wednesday was more of a blowout, but luckily it was during the afternoon, I guess. Hopefully not too many people watched it, I guess. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think for whatever reason, like I was joking about the Ohio Cup, and like it doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. It's something that would be really nice to win just for kind of in-state pride, and people saying that, oh, Cincinnati's part of Kentucky, blah blah blah. You got to see all that on Twitter/X, whatever. But
yeah.
I don't know, man. I think the fact that they lost the series is a bummer, but they kind of, I looked at it as more of like treading water, like they're basically in the same spot where they came in, so to speak.
Yeah, you feel good whenever Chase Burns takes the mound. And the game got rained out, like you said, on Monday. So yeah, it's actually kind of even this week's a little bit even more impressive because they played 7 games in 6 days. Playing the 2 on Tuesday with Burns not having he battled and he got kind of let down by an error, I think Arroyo, what have you, that first day that ended up helping, I guess, his ERA. And he had 5 runs charged to him, but only 1 earned. So it wasn't his best outing out there. Anytime that Chase Burns takes the mound, you always feel like you got a chance. And they battled back late, but end up losing it. I think Sam Moll ended up getting credited with the loss by having a couple runs charged to him, or 1 runner charged to him. So it's just kind of a situation where, yeah, you lose to the Guardians. You get a nice Jose Franco outing, and I forget the injury update on him. That I think Ricky had texted me that he might have had a UCL injury, but I think it's turned out to be something less serious than that. And I think he got optioned down or sent to the IL. I can't remember, but he had a good outing. He ended up getting the win on the second game of the series, winning 2-0. So like it's nice to split against them, and then the third game, yeah, you're right. The Reds kind of fold up sometimes. They don't necessarily come to play on those getaway days, but they manage 6 hits on the getaway day, which is sometimes that's more than they usually get, because then they get 3 hits on the 1 loss against the Pirates on the Saturday night. But anyway, neither here nor there. It felt like they were competitive against a potential playoff team. I know the AL is really down compared to the NL this year, but like the Guardians are right there, 3 games back in the division, right there for the wild card, I believe. And there's not a lot of teams over 500, and they're like one of the hand selected few. But yeah, the bragging rights, it stinks. But ultimately, if that means that the Reds get a chance to get more playoff opportunities or get into the race just because of that one victory out of the three, as opposed to being swept by the Guardians. That's great. Like you said, it had kind of a little bit more tinge of the 2025 team where they fought every single game. It was competitive every single game, and they would not get swept. They would at least get one victory, so that way they're not going on these long stretches of losing streaks. And that's the other thing about this team is that they also haven't got hot either. What was it, 3 games in a row that they had? I think is kind of one of their high water marks, or 4 games. It's not really that impressive ultimately, but they're at least not in the Marlins camp where they lost 12 in a row. So I think 8 in a row was back in May. The point is that the Reds team starting maybe to find their level, starting to find like their ability to beat the teams they should and not get swept by the teams that could sweep them. So I don't know. Again, I feel like I'm starting to repeat myself saying moral victories, that we're trying to build on this. Like we're trying to get this confidence back into this team, because it felt like that there wasn't that confidence in May and June. And we're forever going to probably talk about May and June of 2026 and how it was a lost opportunity to, I don't know, tread water while they had the opportunity of a great April, and they dug themselves into a hole, and now they have to dig themselves out again. So it's like, I don't know. It's kind of a tough situation to be in as a Reds fan, because I'm not ruling out the possibility of a playoff, but would I rather have this team trade some of these assets that we talked about and we'll talk about later and get prospects up and see what the future is? Yeah, I think so, because I don't think this 2026 team is a playoff. They could make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to advance in the playoffs.
Right. No, I agree. And it always comes back to me too, of like, especially the Reds and their, baseball kind of position being a small market and obviously payroll in general. Like you can't afford to like stay in this season, not make it in the playoffs at all, or not advance far, and then you got a tons of guys that are free agents, right? And then they could all potentially walk, and you get nothing back from them unless you make a bunch of qualifying offers or something, which I don't think they'll necessarily do, and probably shouldn't to some extent. But so that's always the fear for me. It's like if we think the outcome of this season is kind of a lost cause, regardless of if they make the playoffs or not, like you got to at least be looking at next year and years beyond with some of these guys that won't even be on your roster, and at least getting something in return for them while you can. And maybe the return is not great and that stinks, and there's reports out now that they're thinking about getting rid of guys like Blade or Lowe or something like that. But I don't know, like those guys would be awesome to have for the last 2 months, but at the same time, like, will it matter? I don't know. I don't want to get too ahead of the trade deadline talk, but that's kind of where I'm at on it.
No, that's fair. It's part of the real conversation we're having right now. Is this team, as we see right now, the 26 man that we see right now, is that going to be the team that's playing at the end of September in game 161, 162? I don't know. The way that this trade deadline has gone, just ultimately is that like a lot of teams are not shopping their guys aggressively as probably they would in years past, because of the playoff format, because of the fact that maybe they could sneak in and get some of that playoff revenue and just cut ties with the Ty Steve and a Bray Singer at the end of the year, saying like Nick Martinez, like, thank you for your services, but you're no longer needed here, type of thing. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It could be a situation where they stand pat. I was looking at the tracker of the trades, all that, and nothing done, no activity for your Cincinnati Reds, Austin. Nothing going as of yet. But it's interesting to see what this team will look like in a couple weeks, and I don't know. I'm trying not to root against them. I feel like I'm like rooting against them to get rid of some guys and build up their depleted farm system and call up some guys that have been really working hard in the farm system at AAA at least. I don't know. I'm stuck between a fan that wants the team to keep winning, like we can enjoy the wins, because we definitely don't want to see them lose the Pirates 3 out of 4 times. That would be a morale killer. And we definitely don't want to see them trip over themselves to the Athletics and the Nationals coming up in the next week as well. So I don't know. I'm mentally in a tough spot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you mentioned Singer, and his value, I think, was on a trajectory to kind of be higher at the deadline in his past few starts. And I know he had the game against the Guardians where he gave up, runs, but they weren't necessarily earned runs. I think maybe one of them was or something like that. But it's kind of similar to that Burns, line you mentioned. But I think it's just for me, like Brady Singer is one of the guys that they'll probably have to look to move. And then, you wonder how much, these recent starts for him will actually impact the return that they can get for him. But yeah, it's interesting. And the way that I look at it too, it's like I'm gonna root for them to win just because like I'm watching and like my gut reaction is when they start losing, I start getting angry and PO'd, and shows you that I still want them to win, I guess to some extent. But like I almost have faith that like even if I want them to win, it'll probably work out to where they don't. So it's like we'll kind of end up in the place they need to be regardless. But we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and the thing about Singer as well is that there was all eyes emoji going on because he was supposed to start Tuesday after the rain delay. He got scratched, and they went with an opener, Caleb Ferguson, I believe, and then had Jose Franco fill in for like the bridge to the bullpen type of thing. And then all of a sudden he gets announced to be the Wednesday starter. So we're like, oh, hold on. You scratch him, and then everyone's like thinking, okay, maybe there's something going on. Maybe Brady Singer is going to be no longer a Red. And then now he's back. It's like, I don't know, a lot of range of emotions with that. And he pitched decently well for him. And still his value seems to be pretty high. But maybe they're just not finding any suitors. But it was just kind of weird that little sequence of the postponement. Okay, Burns is still going to pitch game 1 on Tuesday. In the middle of the day, and then Singer, no, Singer, you take a rest. We're gonna figure this out from here, and that didn't end up happening. So,
yeah. Ironically, the bullpen game worked out the best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the ironic thing is that I think all Cincinnati fans were seeing the opener, TBD, and they're like, oh, great, here we go again, because we're not necessarily, I don't know, we're not the top of the top for getting openers out there and getting it going. We tax our bullpen enough. There's no need to give them 9 innings and then expect them to be perfect. But they were 0 runs again. So I guess maybe sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day type of situation for that. But yeah, anything else you got for the Ohio Cup or the Guardian Series before we move it on to those stinking Pirates?
No, I think we're good. I'm ready to talk some Pirates series.
Yeah, this is the series that we really want to talk about.
One.
Yeah, obviously, 4 games against the Pirates. It could have gone a lot of ways. I think Rick and I were saying that it would be happy with a split, a 2-2 split, because they had Skeens in one of the games. Mitch Keller pitched one of the games. But the Pirates are not trending in the right direction. Like I said, also like the Cardinals, they are in a situation that Fangraphs think they're going to make the playoffs, but like, what does Fangraphs know? That 41% chance to make the playoffs, and I think they're at like 55 and 56 or somewhere around there for the record. So like, yeah, obviously we have the results in hand to see exactly where they're at. But like, what were your first thoughts when you saw your Redlegs, Austin, win 3 out of 4 from the Pittsburgh stinking Pirates?
Yeah, you rattled off our division record, so I was surprised to say the least, just based on how that kind of trend's been going for this team. But yeah, I think we almost caught the Pirates at a decent time. I know they're dealing with, injuries to a multitude of guys. O'Neal Cruz obviously is out too, and then a few others. So it worked out kind of well, I think, and it seemed like the Reds kind of got bailed out in a few instances in the series, just with miscues and errors by the Pirates defensively and whatnot, which, hey, man, I'll totally take. That's baseball, and the Reds have certainly had, that them give up, their own issues over the season where, it's good to get one back, so to speak. But I don't know. It was like for me, it was a fun series. Like I know obviously, winning 3 out of 4, anytime that's happening, it's going to be fun. But like even that, like the Friday night game was back and forth, like it was high scoring, like it was exciting. At least it felt like an exciting, like Friday night, City Connect night again that we haven't had for a while. It feels like too, but I don't know. And then yeah, you mentioned it. The kind of the headline series or the game of the series was Green versus Skeens, which like if this is a year ago, then that'd be like one of the best matchups you could get. But I know obviously both of them are kind of backing into that start. It seems like with Green's obviously injuries and some decent starts since he's come back, but Skeens having the worst year of his career, but still pretty good for him. But yeah, I mean, if you told me beforehand that you would have to face, those guys still in the rotation and just the way that the Reds seemingly play the Pirates, like Reds fans would absolutely take 3 out of 4. So I'm happy with it. It was kind of a weird series too, with all the rain and delays, and today's game especially with like a delay that wasn't a delay. And instead of just like bringing the tarp on the field, they're like using quick dry or whatever that stuff is. So it's a very weird series in a lot of respects, but at the same time, if they're gonna win it, like, hey, I'm all about it.
Yeah, it was quite weird in that way. I actually went to the Saturday game, and that game got started in a rainstorm, got delayed eventually, and then ended up finishing around 11:30 at night or whatever on Saturday night. And then you also mix in like the Marshmallow concert on Friday, so like there was all sorts of things going on this weekend. Not to mention all the I think Chris Stapleton was having a concert at Paycor. And some other things are going on. Like it was a crazy time of year to be out there in Cincinnati. And the one game that stood out just because it usually doesn't go our way is when the Reds on Thursday had like, what was it, like 13 runners in scoring position and was like 1 for 13, I want to say. And then they end up walking off in the bottom of the ninth. And that's usually a game that doesn't go our way. That's a game that where our bullpen is taxed and they're going to possibly be in a high leverage situation and give up a run and end up losing. But fortunately for us, it went our way. And that doesn't necessarily happen. I think maybe it's possibly water finance level type of thing. Maybe we're coming back to where our averages should be, because we know this team isn't a terrible team. We know this is a team that's not going to go, 8-23 against the division all year, right? That would be a team that you would think is like tanking and has no candidates for Rookie of the Year, has no candidates for a Cy Young, no candidates potentially for MVP votes in Ellie De La Cruz. So like that would be like the Colorado Rockies or like the White Sox of a couple years ago, type of thing in terms of the division against the record. So maybe we're starting to come back online and everything like that. The Friday game also was exciting. The matchup, like you said, Paul Skeens versus Hunter Green, like in our minds, we know, wow, this is two great hard-throwing right-handers who both touch 100, who both have nasty splitters and nasty movement on their pitches that can make the hitters look silly. But the reality that we live in 2026 is both of those guys are really struggling. Obviously, just coming back from injury, Hunter Green still trying to find his footing type of situation. And he's had one good start out of the 4, battled in some, but and battled in this one, especially against the Pirates. I think giving up a couple runs at the top of the first, but the same thing with the Skeens. Like he's looking very human, and I think they also had mentioned that his velocity is down from last year. So there may be something around there. They might shut him down if they end up falling out of the playoff race. He got shut down last year, I believe, as well, after his last start against the Reds and dominated them. I remember that scene very vividly, and I was like, okay, like I was seeing that, like that 2025 Skeens come back, and that was going to be the guy that pitched on Friday. No, not really. Got lit up by Sal, got lit up by JJ Bleday. It was kind of interesting, and then they have the bullpen blow up Pierce Johnson, who I hope he's also on the trading block, and we can talk about that in a minute. But like, they come back and win, and it's just like, okay, maybe this team is a team of destiny now. Maybe this second half run, you never know. I don't know. It may carry them in the playoffs. It may just carry them close, and it'll make it exciting for the fans to the end to keep paying attention. But it was kind of weird just to see the Reds kind of snap off these 2 wins against the hated rival team that supposedly is going to make the playoffs in front of us easily. But they're just as flawed and just as playing just like, normal human out there, like Paul Skeens, going out there and looking like he's not the reigning Cy Young guy. Like, I don't know. It gave me confidence because this team has lost these type of games that were close with the bullpen blowing it up and never had the energy to kind of battle back and get those, game-winning runs in the clutch. But yeah, I don't know. It was encouraging overall weekend for me.
Yeah, the way that they won that game Thursday, you mentioned with the walk off, double play that wasn't essentially, and who of any other guy to leg it out but Nate Lowe at first base, who like
Right.
if you had to bet, your top five guys with speed on the team, I don't think anybody would name him. But hey, man, it worked out. The ball kind of rolled a little bit just past the pitcher's mound, just kind of like a no man's land, and it kind of worked out. But and you got a decent start out of Rhett Lauder in that game too. I mean, as much as probably Reds fans haven't been totally high on Rhett this year, he gave you 6 innings, 2 earned runs. So hopefully that's a sign of him kind of getting things, going in the right direction too. I mean, it's crazy. Like I was thinking about it, like he's a guy that I think coming into the season, at least for me, like you almost viewed similarly as you would Chase Burns as far as like potential and like the ability to do things as a high draft pick, obviously, and similar college profile. So it's like I feel like Reds fans, at least that I talk to, like kind of forget like what Brett Lauder was or could be, and that's a huge piece of this team. I think moving forward too. Not even this year, but into the years to come is can they get kind of that return that they need on a lot of guys that they bet on, and that's been really the story for the past couple of years on this team. But yeah, just good to see a series win against the Pirates, and the hope they can keep it going because the Central, at least for whatever reason, has just been a cursed set of games for this team. And if it wasn't, I think we'd be talking totally different at the trade deadline right now. If they didn't have the May that they did and kind of crap the bed there, but here we are. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. And like I said, I got the pleasure of watching them on Saturday in the rain. And it was such a weird thing because it was threatening all day. It rained earlier and all that. And we're kind of like, I think they had like this want to get these games in because they got a doubleheader earlier in the week, obviously with the Guardians, and they didn't want to do that potentially on a Sunday and a getaway day or play on Monday. I don't know if the Pirates play on Monday, but anyway, they really forced that through. That like Andrew Abbott was like pitching in the rain, and I think there's that famous Brandon Williamson quote that he replied back to Charlie G, where like Charlie G was trying to figure out why Williamson was having control issues, and is like, well, yeah, if you were out there, you could see that it was piss and rain. And like it was that kind of scenario for Mr. Andrew Abbott. And he didn't have his best stuff. He walked 5 guys and only struck out 1. I forgot about Braxton Ashcraft. He looked really good against the Reds on Saturday. Gave up only 3 runs the whole game. One of those being a home run from surprisingly the backup catcher Jose Trevino, who has had a really poor season. But he got a little bit and got enough to get it over into the basically the where the Pirates, I think, relievers over there in right field are housed. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the grounds crew was doing the whole game too, because like it felt like the fans, everyone, every time the rain came, they just all shoot up into the concourse, and the baseball umps, I guess, are the ones that have the call, or they get maybe someone to come down to them to tell them, hey, it's looking bad. We should probably not keep playing baseball. But they battled through, and they end up getting through 6 until they get their delay, and then end up completing the last 3 innings. And the Reds, it looked like a getaway day because they only gave up, like they only got the 3 hits. They didn't look like they were threatening much. They didn't get much out of their stars. I think that was the game. That was the game that Sal got hit on the elbow, and that was. I think Cowboy had mentioned on the radio that it looked a little bit suspicious that they're going after him because he had been killing them, and obviously when Sal gets charged up, he doesn't celebrate quietly. I don't know if you know this, Austin. Like he lets everybody know when he gets it going, and he threw that bat down and was really upset on Saturday, and that kind of was like, I don't know. I think they might have got warnings, but it wasn't like that on their warning when they got hit for Sal on the elbow. But he ended up playing on Sunday as well, and playing really well. So maybe you try to knock this guy down, he's just going to get right back up. So I don't know. Credit to him. He didn't look happy at all, obviously, going to first base, but and maybe it was a little bit wet, and maybe got away from him. I don't know what to make of it, but it was kind of an interesting situation to say the least.
Yeah, and if I remember right, like usually when I think if you're gonna like plunk a guy, you'll do it, probably like first pitch of the at bat, but it was like 2 pitches in or something like that, if I remember. But and then I couldn't tell if he was mostly mad because it looked like it maybe got him in like the funny bone like area, just being on your elbow. So I couldn't tell if that was why he was reacting. But yeah, it was kind of strange because he gets hit and he starts walking like basically towards like the Pirate dugout. I'm like, is he going to start like jawing at some guys or something over there? I was kind of waiting for that, but he didn't do it, obviously. But could have been fun if he did. I was getting some Amir Garrett flashback moments, maybe, but I don't know. Not a good look if he was going to go try to fight them all with our potential rookie of the year. But no, that was, and I can only imagine that game was probably super frustrating to be at. You talk about the rain because like yeah, they started it. It's like pouring down rain. I'm like, all right, yeah, great time to start a game, guys. Like, what are we doing? And then it seemingly like, and maybe this is just my weird like hindsight, but it seemed like it was like pouring like every time Abbott would go out, and then it would clear up. Like Abbott would come back out and it would start pouring again. It's like, dude, like what? Can we get any better luck with this? And then he's not gonna like say that that was the reason why he pitched poorly, but I give the guy a little bit of leash for that. Like I know it sucks, regardless of the team, but it like seemingly like almost targeted Abbott as far as like when it was raining the hardest, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, just it was a weird game to say the least. And yeah, I can imagine you were probably bouncing up and down from the concourse to your seat and trying to towel everything off or whatever. But
I was trying to stick it out. I was trying to, like, from time to time. We did go up the concourse once, but like we were trying to watch the game because they weren't stopping. It wasn't like a situation where they looked like they're gonna stop the game. Like I said, they got about 6 innings in before they eventually called the rain delay. And then at that point, we're like, okay, we'll probably head out and watch it the rest of the way, or listen to it on the radio if it starts back up before we're home or what have you. But yeah, and the other weird thing about that game was that it had the feeling that the Reds were, I don't know how to describe it. They weren't like being aggressive out there on the base pass, but like it felt like they were kind of like, I don't know. It felt like a weird vibe of the game all around. Maybe it was the wet rain and everything kind of bringing everything down. It didn't seem like their normal selves. It kind of felt like maybe a team that we saw like in May and June, basically. Like it looked quite different than the past two games where there were a lot more fight in them, a lot more energy. And, maybe it was the weather. Maybe it's just because it's hard to beat the same opponent 3 times in a row. I don't know. It didn't have that fighting spirit, but that's baseball. You got 162 games to try to win as many as you can. Can't win them all type of situation. But they did win on Sunday behind Chase Burns, looking spectacular yet again. A lot better than he did on the Tuesday start. 10-2. They don't do this that much, Austin. They don't blow teams away. It's usually the 8-7, 3-2. You know what I mean? Like they lost 4-1 on Saturday night. So like they've been keeping it close of late. They're not getting blown out themselves, but it's nice to have that emphatic win, especially the rubber match of the week to have a winning week. And then also have your ace pitcher look like an ace pitcher. Like what were your thoughts on the Sunday finale?
yeah, it was definitely nice to not be like sweating in the 8th and 9th inning for once. It doesn't seem like that comes around often, but yeah, I mean, talk about the performances from those guys, but then, I mean, yeah, Sal Stewart, you obviously can't say enough about him. Nate Lowe had a great game, 3 for 4. I'm looking at it now, and obviously, even Brian Hayes got in on the action. So it was one of those days that, like, just things were going right. It's a good, getaway day, I guess, so to speak, with the off day tomorrow. Kind of solidify the series win, which we've talked about. It was awesome, but I mean, really, like, it was just an awesome game, and we haven't even touched on this. Tyler Stevenson, I mean, talk about the game he had on potentially, like, he's got to be coming into that knowing, like, this could be my last game as a Red. The dude hits a home run, hits a double, and has a just good game all around. And obviously, the post game, if anybody saw it with Jim Day, he got a little emotional too. So, he had to be pressing just to do well. And it was really cool to see him do well in those moments because, typically, like, I feel like if a guy's pressing like that, it usually doesn't turn out great, but like it worked out really well for him. And if it's his last game as a Red, we'll touch on this, I'm sure, more later in the show and discussion. But what a way to go out if it was for Ty Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, we're gonna get into it in a minute with Ty Steve. He had ninth homer this year. It's been disappointing. The promise of Ty Steve being kind of this great offensive catcher and whatnot, and he's worked really really hard on his defense. This is a guy that did not have the defensive ability of say Patrick Bailey or whoever else you want to put up there, Gold Glove kind of guys, and he's really worked hard on that. Is also, like we I think talked about a little bit pre-show, like seems like the catcher of the ABS era, because that is a huge strength of his. He's able to be able to tap the helmet whenever he thinks it's close, and he's right way more times than he is wrong. So it's kind of cool that he's starting to really find his stride just in time to hopefully maybe help a playoff contender. I don't know. I don't know exactly where he ends up landing, and we can speculate on it in a bit. But it definitely is cool to see him finally start to maybe hopefully get into stride and look like the plus offensive catcher that can contribute in the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hole in the lineup, as opposed to just kind of being buried down there and 8 or 9 hole. So yeah, it's cool to see that. And yeah, you're right. Nate Lowe also seems like auditioning really hard for his next team, because even if it's not at the trade deadline, I think he's a free agent and he's probably going to get paid pretty decently. Maybe a bigger market, or maybe a team that could afford him a lot better than we ever could. But it's nice to see that as well out of Mr. Nate Lowe, because we've talked about him a lot on the show, with possibly him getting dealt, and also his story in spring training that his mom passed away, and he worked really hard to get to be that 26th man on the roster. And I've called him on the show probably the best bench player that we've had on this team in 4 or 5 years. And that's saying a lot, because I think he's got like 13 or 14 home runs and 40 RBIs. And usually when you're doing that, you're in the lineup every single day for the Reds. You're not doing that off the bench. So shout out Nate Lowe, and he is a pretty decent. I think he had Gold Glove nomination or something like that at first base as well a couple years back. I know he's the Silver Slugger as well. So definitely a guy that I think, if you're on the verge of the playoffs, has won the World Series, has been there, done that. I can't see why they wouldn't be able to find him a home, unless they just don't find the right deal or whatnot for him. But yeah, that was a great way to cap off definitely a nice winning week. Anything else you got in the Pirates series?
The only other notes I had is that it seems like the bullpen's actually been doing pretty well lately. Like we touched on it obviously earlier this week, games and whatnot, but just guys like Antone, Julian Garcia, I think have been really impressive. Antone for a while now, but I feel like Garcia is one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar and really has just put up a lot of solid outings. I mean, he pitched in 2 games against the Pirates, no earned runs, pitched against Cleveland as well, went an inning and 2/3, no runs that outing either. So as much as we talked about the way that the team played in May, and that, a big part of that was how badly the bullpen performed, but really you're getting some solid performances out of guys from kind of top to bottom in the bullpen, which is awesome to see. And hope it's not too little, too late. But at least in the meantime, we're still watching the Reds. Yeah, it's fun to not watch them blow it. At least that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and Emilio Pagan also doing really well. I think his 1.9 something ERA before the last couple times out in the last number of outings since he got back from injury. They've been striking out guys as well, which is not really his strong suit. I think in some 9 innings he had maybe 11 or 10 strikeouts. So he's usually that fly ball pitcher that gets guys to pop out with weak contact, and he's been getting it done, getting a couple saves. Got a weird, strange win. I don't know if you saw that strange stat with Pierce Johnson blowing the lead and giving up 3 runs, but then the Reds scoring at the bottom of the 8th to potentially put Pierce Johnson as the winning pitcher. I guess the scorer has the discretion that if he wasn't a credible pitcher, he didn't do a good job basically to be deserving of a win, he would give it to a reliever that was. So then instead of getting the save for the 8-7 win on Friday night or whatever it was, they gave it to Pagan. So I don't know. I don't know which way. I think Pagan doesn't care. He's one of those guys that doesn't care if he gets a win or if he gets a save. He just wants to make sure they get the W as a team. But just a weird side stat that I read on, I think it was Greg Kuffner and Reds on SI wrote about it. So that was kind of strange stat to see that scorekeeper could do that. But anyway.
Yeah, I read the article and I was trying to make sense of it. You just explained it probably way better than I could have of how it actually turned out. It's I was reading that, I'm this kind of makes sense, but yeah, I did not know that was a thing. But I mean, I guess if you're Pagan, you'd probably rather have a save just to pad your reliever numbers, I guess. But yeah, to your point, he probably doesn't care too much.
No, not him. Maybe if he was 10 years younger and an up and coming pitcher trying to get another contract or whatever, maybe because that could be the situation. Scorers seem to have a little bit discretion. I'm not trying to get into tinfoil hat area, but the Mizorowski error that happened against the Reds, and his ERA is now lower because of it. So like, scorers have wield this power that we don't necessarily. I don't know who's fact checking them. Do they have like a committee that reviews this? You know what I mean? Like there could be some stuff going on
Maybe
there.
community notes.
Exactly,
If they do it
exactly.
next. Yeah.
Something like that. Like we got somebody to make sure that they're just not taking liberties. And there used to be I'm going to go off tangent. There used to be in the NBA in the 80s. I didn't know about this. I probably shouldn't go down too far. We'd be here all day. But supposedly, like they would pad stats for guys in the 80s if they're at home all the time, give them more steals, give them more rebounds out of nowhere, give them more deflections, whatever. But anyway, so there could be that still going on today in 2026. You know what I mean? The numbers are important to baseball still, right? It's still a stat or still a sport that cares about their counting numbers. Anyway, enough about that. Sorry. Anything else we got about the Pirates before we move it on?
No, I think we covered it good, but yeah, good series win. I'll take it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This was a kind of a joke topic. I'd send a text to Ricky. I think like, is Paul Skeens washed? Is what I said. Like, is he not like the Cy Young? I don't think he is because they've got a bunch of guys in the NL. Christopher Sanchez, Mizorowski, Chase Burns, for example, who I think are well more deserving than a Paul Skeens. But obviously, Skeens gets always the shine of the media one way or the other because I don't know that just this big right-hander trying to make Pittsburgh relevant. I guess that's something to talk about in the media, but neither here nor there. Like I was pretty blown away at they're talking about his velocity's down, his ERA is not where it used to be. He's not a guy that gets a lot of wins because he's a guy that usually goes deep in the games for the Pirates, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out because the Pirates are a bunch of losers for the most part. But it's kind of an interesting situation where I'll ask you, Austin, is Paul Skeens washed?
I don't know if he's washed, but I mean, you look at his numbers. He coming into this year, 3 seasons in the league, both of the first 2 seasons, ERA is under 2, and now he's up approaching 4. He's at a 3.9 right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think he definitely needs to get kind of back on track if he's gonna, get back to his averages, so to speak, very early in his career, certainly. But I don't know. I feel like if you're a Pirates fan, you're probably a little bit worried, but you're not too worried. I was thinking about this, and I don't know if it'll come up, and maybe already has in Pirate circles, but pitching in the World Baseball Classic, are they going to look at that and say, hey, he's throwing too hard too early type of thing? And I don't know it. And, that stuff's kind of tinfoil hat for me too. Of it doesn't really matter, but you gotta look at it, man, because especially pitching, like guys take forever to get ramped up. It seems like in spring training, and if you're going, live, I can't remember how deep into games he went in the World Baseball Classic or pitch counts and that type of stuff. But I think that's a factor. Certainly, I guess, another variable in it. But I'm eager to hear your thoughts on it too.
Yeah, the World Baseball Classic is an interesting thing because you get the Aaron Judge, you get the Skubal, you get the who else is Schwarber, but Schwarber seems like he's doing pretty fine. He had maybe a rough start, but sometimes he does that too, where he bats 200 for the whole season and hits 50 bombs. But yeah, I want to say the Pirates and Tigers like communicate a lot about like we're not letting them go too far in games. We're not letting them pitch. Maybe we'll get 2 games. You know what I mean? It was very limited work at best. I don't know. I get it because it's a bigger stage and you're going to probably throw harder because you get more juiced up in front of a big crowd and whatnot, and you're pitching for your country. I get that aspect of it, but I don't know if it will wreck a whole season unless the guy goes, too much in the red line. You know what I mean? Like these guys pitch all year round nowadays. They're not even taking that much time off like the old guys used to take the whole off season off and come back to spring training out of shape. No, they're coming in spring training in the best shape they've ever been. That old phrase. But they're throwing year round. It's not like they're just throwing just when spring training's around. I don't know. It's kind of a phenomenon that's like, okay, fine, I get it. They got this, this tournament that's just a quick. I don't even think it's like 2 weeks, like maybe 3 weeks or whatever. But you got to ramp up for it, obviously, so you're not injuring yourself by going into it 75%. But same time, like, aren't you doing kind of like that? You're just doing a little bit. Your timeline's moved up, and it's not like this tournament came out of nowhere. So I get it if like maybe he comes out the gate a little slow, like Schwarber or what have you. but it seems like a lot of these guys are really affected throughout the whole year. And I don't know, maybe they're just creatures of habit and they just get into a situation where they know their body so well that they need to do this on this time of the year. Like once it turns over to January, they start the ramp up process. But if they back it up a month, maybe it throws their whole rhythm off. Maybe it throws their routines off. That's the only thing I think. But it feels like Skeens has been struggling the whole year. It's not just like it was, April, May. It's been the last couple months, and the thing that it pointed to is his velocity's down, and they do that one guy on X Twitter, the everything app, that overlay that Rob Middleman, whatever is the pitching ninja, he does the overlay of like Skeens in 2025, Skeens in 2026. It seems like his mechanics are a little bit different as well from year to year. So like, I think there's something that needs to be looked at. I can't believe the Pirates haven't yet tried to tinker with something. But maybe they extended the right guy. Maybe Connor Griffin is the right guy to extend. Maybe Paul Skeens. Yeah, I don't know. Pitching is kind of tough because it year to year injuries happen. We know this very well with Hunter Green, that he could be awesome in 2024 and 2025, and then all of a sudden miss the first half of 2026, and you're like, dang, got to be appreciative of the great pitching performances that we do get with these guys.
Yeah, longevity for pitchers seems like it's a rare art form now. So there's so many guys that have a kind of flash in the pan a couple seasons, but doing it over 10 plus years is what gets you in like Verlander territory or something like that. So that's obviously rare air. Selfishly as a Reds fan, I hope Paul Skeens doesn't figure it out, but I don't know. I think that he's still got hopefully good enough stuff for the Pirates, point of view to get back at it. But in the meantime, I don't know if we play the Pirates much anymore the rest of the season, but I don't even think the way that the schedule is now, I can't even remember seeing any Pirates series coming up. But
like I say, I don't think so. That's probably why the grounds crew was trying to get these games in. They wouldn't want to reschedule a random Pirates coming to Cincinnati on an off day, possibly. I think that was it because they play the Cubs and the Brewers and the stinking Cardinals, I think, again. But no, I don't think it might be done with the Pirates, which, yeah, after beating them 3 out of 4 times, you kind of want to play them again as many times as possible. Yeah, I mean, to get back right into the division. But unfortunately,
or we quit while we're ahead and just get out. Now we're good playing them. We won.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe that's a good point. But yeah, anything up about? I don't want to make this a pro Pirates podcast, but I put it offhandedly, like I couldn't believe, like I was actually driving home, listening to on the radio, and the Tommy Thrall and the Cowboy they're kind of surprised at how bad Skeens has been, and the Reds are not necessarily, like, I think they hit before the home runs they hit with Bleday and Sal Stu. I think the stat was Paul Skeens only gave up 1 homer against the Reds in his career. I think that was the stat. So like, it's just kind of crazy how dominant he's been. So I was just kind of surprised, just like the radio guys, at how bad he's been. But anything else you got on Paul Skeens?
I think that's good.
So yeah, we mentioned Ty Steve, who's been fantastic of late, but it's coming down to the wire, Austin. Like it's August 2nd, and at Sunday night, like what are we gonna hear? What are we gonna see? Are we gonna be watching our phones, just waiting and get nothing? Like it feels like, with the comments that Tyler Stevenson made after the game, after a great performance on Sunday, that he's kind of made his peace at the very least, of not being a Cincinnati Red anymore. But there's a possibility he could, right? Like there's a possibility that deals fall apart at the 11th hour, and there's a lot of maybe different machinations and different pieces and stuff to go like that. What were your thoughts on Tyler Stevenson saying goodbye, more or less, and then also what potentially could happen in the next 24 hours?
Yeah, I think like how emotional Stevens was kind of about the whole situation after the game leads me to believe that, and I have no way of like knowing this, but that like he's at least been kind of told like, hey, there's a decent chance that we move you, or I don't know, something along those lines, because like normally a guy will just say kind of like the Hunter Green quote from a couple days ago when he pitched. He's like, I can't worry about that. It's really out of my control. But like Stevenson was like pretty much like, he was crying, kind of saying, basically saying goodbye in so many words. But so I don't know. And the way that Jim Day kind of talked to him too, it's like, kind of expecting him to be gone sort of thing. And I know there's been rumors, I guess the Yankees were initially looking for a catcher. And then I've heard even talk about White Sox recently and maybe somewhat of a reunion with Luis Castillo going over there. And I think I saw a stat where, Stevenson, when he catches Luis Castillo, Castillo's got like a 2 something ERA. So like, I don't know. There could be something to that. And I was thinking about it too. I'm like, well, probably anybody that caught Luis Castillo as a Red, like he had a pretty decent ERA. So like, I don't know if that necessarily matters, but um, I don't know. I think on the Stevenson thing, like it's tough for me because like I think he's a guy that they like quote unquote should move just because of the free agency and impact and kind of where that's at. But it's like he's almost playing himself like he's like, oh yeah, like Stevenson's raising his trade value, and everybody's saying it's like, well, he's also like raising his value of like being a guy that could potentially be an impact on this team and you'd want to keep type of thing. So I don't know. I've heard people talk about like, is it a situation where they trade Ty Steve? He gets to finish out the season with a contender, so to speak, and then would the Reds try to re-sign him next year? And like, I don't know that I feel like that wouldn't necessarily happen, but at the same time, I feel like he would maybe be open to it, just the way that he's kind of emotional about Cincinnati and everything that happened today. But I don't know. I think that he'll probably get moved just based on all of that factoring in. What the return will be, I can't imagine it's too crazy, but it'll be really interesting to see. And you guys, on this podcast probably know much more about kind of the catching depth that would be coming up, but it would put the Reds, I think, in a pretty tough position because you touched on it earlier in the show. Trevino has not had a great year, and really at that point, you're going to be looking at minor league guys to fill in. So I think it's a trade that like we talk about like Singer getting traded and all these other guys. It would seemingly have much more of a daily impact on the Reds if you got rid of Tyler Stevenson. So I think that has to factor in too, but I still think I'm leaning towards he's probably gone. But is that where you're at on it as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to bring up his quote right here, exactly, it just a little snippet that Ricky put together. It said it was special, so it's past tense, right? Like it's almost like I don't know if he knows things. I don't know if we got to go get Brian Windhorse fingers out here to be like, why would he say that? This type of thing. But yeah, you're right. Having such a great finale against the Pirates maybe got him a little bit thinking about his future a little bit more. I don't know. There was also that video or little thing that got captured Friday or Thursday night where Nick Lodolo had a hand on the shoulder of Tito and Tito was holding his back. And then there was Singer there as well. Like people were like pointing at that, like, hey, there's something going on here. But like I said, all these deals may be possibly on the table, but they could also fall apart as quickly as they come together. So it's kind of interesting to see that Ty Steve was as emotional as he was, knowing that yeah, it could go both ways in terms of his time ending. It could be he knows that he's in his last year of control, and there hasn't been talks about extension. And on this podcast, we talk about a lot that is what what has been happening is kind of falling in line with that. They're just going to say, "Thank you for your time here, Tyler. We have a catcher in Double A who is the future." I'm not saying that Alfredo Duno is going to be up in 2027 on opening day. If we have an opening day, I got to keep saying that as well. But I think we have decent enough, not in front of him, but kind of like, bridge catchers. Will Banfield, PJ Higgins have both, I think, seen a little bit of time at the major league level. They're not major leaguers. They're I would say probably below average major leaguers to say the least. But at the same time, you get 3 for 2 position with Trevino and kind of rotate. See, hopefully, maybe they'll catch fire. Maybe they get an Austin Wins type of situation where they get some productivity like they did in 2025 out of a guy they did not think they were going to when Tyler Stevenson was hurt. I don't know. I think they are paving the way for Alfredo Duno because I don't want to put like too much pressure on him because he's still 20 years old, if you can believe that, Austin, and playing in Double A for the first time just for like a month. And unfortunately, I think he pulled up running to first base just a couple days ago. So hopefully he's not too injured. He hasn't played in a while. But I think he is the future, and I think they see that. I think they want him to be as ready as possibly he can be defensively, because that's the one thing that is holding Duno back at the moment. But offensively, he seems to have the tools, and he seems to know the strike zone, because he also walks at a pretty decent rate for a big guy who has a pretty big strike zone and a guy that swings really, really hard at it. But it is the Tyler Stevenson section of the podcast, not afraid to know. The point I'm trying to say is I think Tyler Stevenson knows if he's not even traded, say tomorrow or tonight, he knows probably even if he finishes at the end of September a Red, that's probably his ending as well. That's what I kind of also read into that. It was special. It was, an emotional kind of farewell address, if you will. But yeah, I don't know. Stranger things have happened. The CBA could change things. It could not. I don't think I compare catchers to like the running backs of Major League Baseball, where the wear and tear on those guys' bodies don't necessarily add value unless you get a Salvador Perez, who's like a Hall of Famer potential type of catcher, or like you get a Patrick Bailey or a Buster Posey, whatever type of Gold Glove catcher. It's tough because these guys kind of they have to squat every single inning and catch 100-mile-per-hour fastballs all the time. To get a decent offensive catcher like Ty Stevenson seems like a plus, a benefit, but if he's often injured, it kind of makes it hard to justify his value going forward. That's just I guess if I'm the GM type of situation that I'm thinking through. But yeah, he definitely is going to be missed because he's been a pretty decent, serviceable catcher. Just unfortunately,
August tenured Red too, right? Like,
yeah,
at this point, it's crazy.
Yeah, 2015 first round pick, if you could believe that. TJ Antone, I think, goes a little bit further back. I think he's 2012.
Okay. Yeah.
Pick. But yeah, but TJ's been in the minors up and down and injured and all that. So like, yeah, but definitely he's a veteran on this team outside of, I don't even know, who would be the second longest tenured Red. It's a good question for trivia. but yeah, what other guys do you think potentially could be dealt? I know we talked about Singer. I'd like to see Pierce Johnson gone, as much as he's a good friend of Emilio Pagan. I'm sorry, but he's not been worth his $4.5 million or whatever he got paid in free agency. What other guys? You got any other guys that could be dealt or should be dealt at the deadline?
I think there's a decent chance Brock Burke gets moved. He's a free agent for one coming up this season, or after the season, but he's also having like the best year of his career. Like if you look up his numbers, which is wild to think, because I don't know, like it's kind of a quiet, 2.56 ERA if there's a way to do that. But like, and like even the past two seasons with the Dodgers, he was up in the 3 range. So like this is a really good year out of Brock Burke, and you got to figure any team that's looking to get kind of bullpen help, like he'd be an awesome guy to bring onto your team. So at least in terms of like actual like pretty good value we might be able to get back, you would hope that they can find a way to move him. At the same time, it obviously hurts your near-term bullpen, but I think if the Reds are kind of sellers, which I think we both think they probably will be, like you're not really looking at this year, unfortunately. But I think Burke would be one that will at least get a decent return, and then really like I don't know. I'm not like full sell mode, but I'm like full sell mode on like the guys that aren't coming back, or like I think there's even like a way that you would still be able to get a decent value for Suarez, even though he's kind of had a down year. But I think just on like track record alone, like he's a name that people would probably have interested in. And for me, like it just hasn't really worked out seemingly well with him, and as much as I wanted it to. Like I love Gino and like was really hoping that that would be a great addition for this team, but maybe they just look at it and say like, all right, like this didn't really pan out like we thought it would. If we can get anything back, maybe they go that route. But I don't know. Anybody else that I'm missing that you wanted to touch on, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I want to sell is because I think we need to really bolster our depth in the minors in certain positions. Outfield could be a help. Starting pitching could be another help. Like just try to get some guys that could potentially raise the level of the minors so that we have some more depth to call up upon. I thought like a Julian Aguiar was a guy that was going to be up with the Reds sometime this year, but he's struggled, so they could use some more starting pitching down there at AAA Louisville. Relievers as well, just like how our major league relievers have kind of struggled. Our AAA relievers have been walking a bunch of guys. Like Connor Phillips is down there in Louisville and struggled, and some other guys as well. We could, I think, yeah, Brock Burke's a good one. I think he provides decent value that a lot of people. I mean, a guy that's lefty that throws 100 and has a 2.56 ERA, like you said, that sounds like a guy that gets moved at the deadline if you are a selling team. I don't know. I feel like the Reds have softened. I think they're going to soft sell. I think they're going to maybe move some guys. Like, I don't know. It feels like we're coming down to it the last minute, but a lot of crazy stuff could happen. They probably think internally that they could make a run. Like if you trade Tyler Stevenson, who do you play? You play PJ Higgins, I guess. You play Trevino, I guess, but I don't know. You trade Singer, who you bring up? You bring up, the Jose Franco if he's not hurt. They're kind of in a situation where like I don't think Meador and Krall. I think that internally they should feel some pressure to be competitive. Have they been? Have they made the right moves to stay competitive? No, not this year, obviously, but that's why I think they should need to restock and retool their minors, because they're so like 25th out of 30 from Baseball America. And I know that's an opinion from a baseball source, but still it kind of proves right, because you only got really two top guys in the top 100 with Alfredo Duno and Steele Hall. You'd like to have a lot more. You see the Brewers and you get jealous that they have like 7 or 8 guys in the top 100 and a bunch of guys they're basically keeping in the minors because they have no spot for them yet, but they're really good prospects. Same thing for like the Dodgers. So I don't know. If you're not gonna be like I try to say this, I probably should make this like, if you're not gonna be good in the majors, you got to be better in the minors. And if you're not gonna be better in the minors and you sell off your stock in the minors, you better be competitive at the majors. And the Reds with Krall and company have not.
Yeah, 100%. And I got one correction on Brock Burke. I said it was the best year of his career. 2022, he had a 1.97 ERA, but it's the second best year of his career. So I'm a little bit wrong, but still very good year for him. But yeah, I mean, I think, and the crazy thing too, one other guy I kind of forgot about before he got hurt, I guess, essentially, Spencer Steer was like in the trade talks, I feel like heavily, kind of, went on the IL and seemingly cooled that off. Would any team still have any interest? I don't know. He's probably getting close to the 10 days, I guess, or maybe it's about a week back that he went on the IL. So coming close to being back. And I haven't heard anything, at least as far as like what he's been doing kind of game prep wise and things like that. But you wonder if, any teams would have any interest still in him. I would guess probably not at this point, but he was at least a guy that was kind of seemingly in the forefront of talks, at least going into this month or last month, I guess.
Yeah, and I would think, again, I feel like I'm trying to put my GM hat on, which might be dangerous because I don't know exactly if I want to be inside Nick Krall's head. But I would want a big haul for Steer, because I feel like he's a part of that 23 core, that Ellie, McLean, and all them. Marte still kind of hanging on to that core piece. Abbott and whatnot. Like, I'd like him to still be a part of this core and make it feel like that they had a decent rebuild in 2023. But I don't know if he could fetch a bunch of top prospects or maybe even a major league reliever that would be suitable for this team. But yeah, the injury is a bit of a blessing in disguise to help him still be a part of this team. Hopefully, you never know. There may be somebody crazy enough to trade for him if they think that he's possibly going to be back sooner than later. But yeah, I think my father-in-law always talks about Spencer Steer is like major league average player. Like he's decent, but he's not terrible. He's not above average where he's like going to be potentially like, a 3 or 4 or 5 WAR player. He's almost like the average player. And, he also has that value because he can be a Swiss Army knife and play all over the field. And he seems like a guy that would run into a wall and then have an injury of a shoulder and play 6 months of the year on an injured shoulder. So like he feels like a Cincinnati Red. You know what I mean? Like he feels like a guy that we would trot out there and be like, yeah, man, we know you're not, Fernando Tatis Jr., but we need a guy. We need a guy out there that's gonna play every single day and put his body in the line like a Dane Myers. I'd love to see Dane Myers come back in 2027 to be a Cincinnati Red, and that's another guy. I think he might be out of contract. I think he was only on a 1 year deal as well, but I don't think he's rumored to go anywhere. If I'm mistaken, I don't know. I'd be surprised, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The usual guys, like you had said, the guys that are not going to be here next year, the Singers of the world, Tyler Stevenson of the world. As much as I'd like to see them finish off on a high note potentially in September, they may help their next team, win a round in the playoffs. They may help their next team advance to the AL or NLCS. You never know.
That's the tough thing about the trade deadline for me too. It's like you mentioned it was Steer. I look at guys like, JJ Bleday too. They're not like world beaters by any means, but it's like they're guys that if you want to have a good team, like you need guys like Bleday, like Steer that are like, average, above average type thing. Cause like eventually you take away too many of those guys and then you're playing with a bunch of quadruple A guys or something. And it's like, well, crap, we didn't really prepare ourselves for the future at all. Like, so that's a tough part. And I don't know that we probably touched on it pretty good as far as the trade deadline. We better publish this show because it's probably gonna all change by the time people hear this. But hey, that's all right, man. But hey, you can see where our takes were before anything happened.
Yeah,
I'm looking
exactly.
through X right now, just like waiting. I saw Kevin Gossman, I guess, is going to the Cubs,
Mm.
and Luis Ariz Jr. or not Luis Ariz, but Luis Garcia going to the Yankees. So some moves are already happening.
Yeah, we might be out there yeah, our takes might have aged by this point, but yeah, we'll maybe we'll just keep staying on until 6 p.m. tomorrow, Austin. If you got the time, we'll just keep. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
Won't make it.
there is one guy you like to build around, though, a guy that is above average in my opinion and should be rookie of the year. Is our red hot red of the week. We've got a guy that, I mean, just attitude wise, is just special because he goes out there and competes. He goes out there and wants to win for his team. I mean, he literally, like, he seems like the guy that, yeah, I don't think it's a canned answer when Jim Day asks him, like, hey, is it cool that you got all these RBIs or would you rather just win? And I don't think it's a canned answer of just like, player speak, just trying to non answer, just be like, yeah, I just want to win. I think he absolutely wants to win. And that's Sal Stewart, as you can see there if you're watching on the YouTubes. Not necessarily great average, 269 average. I feel like, though, his impact this week was felt with the 3 homers, 9 RBIs, hitting a clutch hit in the 8th inning, I think, of the Friday game to either put us ahead or I think it tied the game, right? They're down 7-5, tied at 7-7. Sal Stu is just, I mean, since his hot April to now, I know he had a bit of a lull, which, I mean, he's a rookie. It's his first, time basically, playing this many games probably in his career at high level. What were your thoughts on Mr. Sal Stewart, Austin, having this fantastic week?
Yeah, I mean it's like surprising, but then it's not. But like I think, yeah, I mean he's clearly I think the red hot red of the week. I know we talked about it in kind of the pre-show as well. Like I feel like he should be the rookie of the year in the NL. I'm like I see all the talk about Weather Holt for the Cardinals, and like I get he's got a better WAR, he's good at defense, whatever. But it's like, dude, Sal Stewart at least of like 24 hours ago was like leading the league in RBIs. So it's like, how do you overlook that? Like he's putting together an awesome season. He's got seemingly the clutch factor at least for this team more often than not. Just overall love the way that he plays the game. He touched on it too, on just kind of his general outlook and constantly wanting to get better. But just like what a guy to watch this season for the Reds. And I know we saw him a little bit last year, but he's still technically a rookie, which is even more impressive. And the fact that I think he was able to come back from that kind of lull that you mentioned and like still kind of have this past week or so that he's had, like kind of shows that he's got some staying power with it too, which is even better. But I don't know, man. Like I'm going to keep talking about Sal Stewart needing to be the rookie of the year. I know he's in contention. It's not like I'm the only guy talking about this, but I mean, I don't see how, I feel like people are going to have to look at the offensive numbers a little bit more than they already are, just comparing him and Weatherholt. OPS, Sal's better, obviously RBIs. So I don't know. I think we're talking about guys that they need to potentially trade and sign and things like that. Hopefully they can find a way to lock up Sal because yeah, man, what a week and what an overall season.
Oh, Yeah, absolutely. Austin, we live in 2026, this analytics world of baseball where, like, I think the tipping point was it was it 2012, Felix Hernandez, Seattle Mariner, won a Cy Young with like a 12-12 record. I want to say he had a fantastic ERA and all the other type of counting stats, but like that was, I think, the turning point where, like, okay, analytics are going to tell or inform us that, like, yeah, wins are not necessarily a pitching stat, it's a team stat, because if his team stinks, Felix Hernandez can't really do much about that. He can't hit and pitch. Well, I guess maybe at one point he could, before we went to all DH, but he can't do it every single time. I think they also have kind of ingrained in us that RBIs are a team related stat as well. Like, obviously he has to get the hits, but it depends on the guys in front of him getting on base and whatever. But like, like a good team is going to have a guy that drives in a lot of runs, right? Like, there's going to be one of those guys. Unless you have just a team that's like pretty consistent across the board and all the guys are doing, the driving in of the runs as opposed to just one or two or three guys. But anyway, that being said, he's a rookie. I think I posted this. I actually went to his debut game, September 1st, 2025. I'll always remember it because it was against a really good Blue Jays team who ended up going to the World Series, and they ended up losing that series, I think, but they won that one game, his debut game. I think they came back and won 5-4 or something like that, or 5-3. I think even TJ Friedel got in on the act in 2025. But the energy that he brought his first game as a professional player, as a guy that has no experience doing this, outside of, the triple, doing AAA and other minor league levels, it was a breath of fresh air for this team that was struggling in August, right? Like, the August of 2025 is a tourist month because that was the calf strain or the thigh strain of Ellie and playing through it and all that junk. But yeah, anyway, that brings it back that, like, 11 months later to August 1st, a guy that debuts with that energy, also I think led the team in home runs in September of 2025, has 84 RBIs, leading the league, and is his first full professional year. It's outstanding. It's great. I don't know how many more words we can attribute to this guy, because it's unfortunate. I think, if I'm going to put on my cynical hat, he might be too expensive now because he's really good. He's like, obviously we have in our X page, extend style Stewart as one of our mantras. Hopefully, please, they got, Chase Burns. They got him extended. Sal might be worth double that money, and that's because he's an everyday player and all that. And also, you talk about rookie of the year. I'm thinking beyond that, Austin. He could, if he brings this team into contention and they make the playoffs, he should be like MVP votes, in my opinion, because he's impact player. He's not just, obviously he's not just like a defensive wizard like Weatherholt, but like, he's impacting the game more than just on the defensive side of the ball. He's offensively outstanding. Our best hitter, I would say.
Yeah, and that's a good point though about it probably becoming too expensive. I was gonna try to look it up real quick, but I don't have it yet. Like, how many more seasons do you know if the Reds have him, at least team control wise, to where we don't have to necessarily worry about losing? I'm sure it's got to be a lot of being a rookie, but I don't have it in front of me. But that, yeah, I mean, that would be the only thing is like maybe you wait until you really have to make a decision. Kind of, I don't think they're necessarily waiting to sign Ellie, but they're obviously just kind of running out the clock as far as how long they can control him and have him on the team. But yeah, it's crazy. And knock on wood, this doesn't turn into like a Matt McLean type situation where like he's a guy that, man, we would really love to sign him, and then shoot, they even tried to and he said no. But I guess time will tell what ends up happening with the overall performance. But I mean, yeah, total MVP, like, I'm on board. Let's go. Yeah, to your point, I think the Reds would have to be in contention for that to happen. But like, numbers wise, like, RBIs, we talked about that and everything else. Like, he could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 24 home runs, probably easily gets 30, maybe 35. I don't know. He's got 2 more months. If he gets hot enough, he could carry this team to the playoffs. Maybe. I think, if I'm doing my math right, this year would be a pre-arbitration year. 27 would be a pre-arbitration year. 28 would be another pre-arbitration. He won't be arbitration eligible till I think 2029, if he's not extended. Obviously, this is
Right.
and I think he'd become a free agent after the 31 season, which, it's crazy that we're talking about 2031 anyway. But that's at least my rough math. If anybody, is seeing something different. I know they changed the rules a little bit on control or the service time and hours and stuff like that. He might be eligible for certain bonuses and whatnot and performance bonuses and whatever. And the CBA will change all that possibly as well. So we'll see what it actually ends up being after that gets sorted out, hopefully. But yeah, anything on Salbert Stuholz? And that's the other thing. He's killing like the stats. Okay, so if we're gonna like, obviously RBIs is a counting stat that's easily looked at, but he is better than 2001, how long ago? 25 years ago. 2001 rookie Albert Pujols. He is ahead of him in that, at least the RBI stat. And I think he had been ahead of him in like doubles and homers at one point as well. But 2001 Albert Pujols was a monster rookie. Like I think he ended up with 40 home runs and 100 RBIs his rookie campaign. But enough about, I guess, Cardinals players. Maybe we shouldn't go down that path.
Yeah, well, and you talk about the RBI stat being a team stat too. It's like, well, if that's factoring in, like, it's actually even more impressive if you look at this Reds offense as a whole. The fact that he's able to do that, it's like, shoot, like that should skew him higher in the MVP, if anything. But nah, that's all I got on Sal. He's awesome though.
That's a good point. You should put that out there, Austin. That like to all the baseball writers of America, whoever votes on this stuff. Hey, have you seen the Reds offense outside of Sal and Ellie? Just have you seen Key Brian Hayes? Except today. But anyway, yeah, good stuff. We're gonna preview the week. We got 2 series coming up against the Athletics. I believe both of them on the road. Since we had like 10 straight games at home, so now they become road warriors at the Athletics and then at the Nationals in DC.
I think they're home for the Athletics and then on the road at the Nationals. They'll pull it up.
Oh, okay. So they're finishing up that 10 games. Oh yeah, because they had 7 this week, and then now they'll 3 to cap off the 10-game road warrior or the homestand, and then 3 in DC. Okay, yeah. Well, that's good. I think home cooking should be good. They get an off day tomorrow, albeit the trade deadline stuff might be stressful for some. If the Reds are potentially getting out there and making phone calls and making deals, but what are your first initial thoughts like on Athletics and the Nationals coming up?
Yeah, I mean Athletics are like 20 games under 500, so that's a really series that you kind of have to win if you're still thinking the Reds have any shot of anything this year. And it could be a very different roster by the time we end up playing them on Tuesday too. So it'll maybe be a good series to play on somebody that's not super great. Nationals, I think, are a little bit closer to 500, a couple games under. So really, I think we talked about it earlier in the show, but like these series that you're playing against these teams that are sub 500 in general, like you got to get some wins if you're trying to salvage any type of season, which I know is kind of crazy talk, but they're still in it. So I'm going to keep being crazy as much as I want to. But yeah, I think the Athletics, they got to take care of business there. The Nationals, I can maybe see them losing that just because, the Reds are the Reds, but winnable series, both of them. It'll be interesting too, because I know the Nationals obviously moving some guys like Garcia already. I don't really even know much about the A's roster overall to give you an in-depth preview or who's trading or anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just both winnable series, I think, and hopefully they can take care of business.
Yeah, I think Shea Langoliers, the catcher, was supposed to be on possibly the trade block, but he got injured or something like that, or they pulled off. I know they got a good young player, Nick Kurtz, and whatnot. Can't remember exactly. The Athletics, yeah, I don't follow West Coast baseball as probably as much as I should. But I think the Athletics have a weird stat, or not the Athletics, the Nationals have a weird stat where I think they lead baseball in runs scored. They have a fantastic young, exciting offense with James Wood obviously leading the pack. CJ Abrams is second to Sal in RBIs. I got a young guy named Dalen Lyle, I think. Like they got an exciting offense, which hopefully the Reds are not going to succumb to that because they also have horrible pitching and I think even worse bullpen than even the Cincinnati Reds, which is something to say out loud. But yeah, I feel like I saw this in 23. The Nationals came to us when the Reds were like in August, after having like a great June and July and after the All-Star break and got this momentum going, trying to push for the playoffs with these young guns and Ellie and McLean and all that, and Abbott, and then all of a sudden they lose to the Nationals, who were way out of it, and it's just like, man, like the Reds can do that to you. So I'm bracing for that, basically personally, and maybe trying to reverse jinx the situation. I think a 3-3 week is totally fine. I know that's kind of rough coming out of a week that we, won 3 out of 4 against a division opponent, and now we're going against non-division opponents. So you expect them to be just like they've been the rest of the 2026 season. Really good against non-division opponents, but you never know. There could be water meeting its level that way. So I think since we're at home, I'd like to see them beat the Athletics. And I definitely don't want to see them get swept against the Nationals coming up. I don't know. What are your kind of first thoughts with that?
I think that's fair assessment. And looking at the probables, at least for the Reds and Athletics series, Tuesday Brady Singer will be slated to pitch, so that could be some shuffling going on. Of if he's gone, what do you guys do with the rotation? Move somebody up. I don't really know how the off day factors into like guys on their 5-day schedule. I know it's probably weird with the doubleheader we had Tuesday and everything else, but it'll be interesting to see what they do there if Singer is no longer there at least. So that'll be something to focus on. But yeah, I think that's at least where I'm looking at it. It's like if you want to be a quote unquote real team, you got to take care of business, and if they don't, then maybe it'll justify what they do by the trade deadline, I guess.
Possibly, yeah. It could be interesting 24 hours. I guess we'll be all attuned to that. It could be a totally different looking team going up against the Athletics and Nationals. So that's maybe why I'm hedging my bets in terms of the momentum could be somewhat quashed if we're going without Singer and having to do another bullpen game. But like you said, hey, we looked really good a week ago in the bullpen game or so on that Tuesday. So you never know with this team, right? Like going into the All-Star break, I don't think Austin, if anybody told you, just imagine this. They're going to win 4 out of 5 series, and they're going to take 3 out of 4 from the Pirates. And the only series they're going to lose against is, a Guardians team that's usually has their number.
They're still going to be sellers.
Yeah, and still be sellers. Yeah. Would you have believed that is the question, right? So it's like.
No, I would not have. Still don't, but yeah.
Well, yeah. That's the thing. I think I don't know what scenario. I guess they could have just been like 12 games win streak, a la 2023. Maybe that would have made us believers. Kind of like how the Boston Red Sox have made their fan base believers now, kind of thing. Maybe that would have been the only thing but they won like 15 games, right? Or 16? If the Reds won 16 games out of the break, gosh, I think just rip up all the old takes that this team is dead and all that and everything. But I don't know. I guess we can dream. We can always dream for next year.
But yeah, ironically, they'll probably go on that win streak after they sell at the deadline. We'll be like, now what do we do? But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'd be so Reds. That's so Reds. I don't know. That's not the name of the podcast, but it's might as well be sometimes. But yeah, I want to thank you, Austin, again coming on. I know we always call on you in a pinch, like a reliever in a high leverage situation. So we're really appreciative of you coming in and giving your Reds knowledge. Are you going to be on C-Box? I've been seeing you a lot on the post game show. You'll be doing that coming up.
Yeah, nothing scheduled. I basically do kind of a similar ordeal with them. If they need a bullpen arm, I come sprinting out like Todd Coffey, basically. But no, it's good to be on there. I hopefully I'll get on there in the next week or so. I think maybe next weekend if I had to remember right. But yeah, find me on there. Find me on X at AustinL513. But good to be on with you guys too, man. You guys I'm a fan of your guys' show even without kind of knowing you as I do. It's like you guys are some of the best coverage, certainly in the minor league world, but even obviously the major league team. I think you and Ricky do an awesome job. So glad to know you. Glad to be on anytime you guys need me to.
No, we really appreciate you, and yeah, you're a part of this family. All right, that's I guess what I was saying because we're fans first. We're not trying to profess to be any experts. Although I do, and it's funny. I do watch a lot more minor league baseball than I do the Reds. If I want to be full disclosure, because I'm just flipping between the Tortugas and the bats on any given night. But yeah, it's great to have you here to talk Reds. We look forward to hopefully seeing you again on the show. But until then, go Reds.